All right, and we are recording. So welcome. We're so glad that you could join us. This is an ALASC event on youth services and the holidays, which we hope will be a valuable topic to you right now, since I'm sure that many of you are working in places that are starting to prepare for the holidays, or maybe you are just curious in the future when you'll be working in libraries, what exactly to do this time of year. So we have two speakers who are going to start in just a moment. They'll speak about 15 minutes each, and then we'll have about 15 minutes left at the end for questions. So think about things that you would like to ask them about, or maybe things that you'd like to share. Perhaps you've had experiences at your workplace in the past that you're not really sure how it was handled, and you'd like some feedback. So you can ask those over audio, you can ask those over chat. I'm going to check the chat real quick to see if there are, okay, hello. All right, so I'll be checking those at the end, and we'll get started. Julia, you're up first.
Hi, Elizabeth.
Hi.
Thanks. About the first slide, I didn't notice a little tiny error. I am located in Glen Ellen, Illinois, because I live there, but Addison Public Library is located in Addison. It's about a 20-minute drive from where I live. So
that makes sense. Sorry about that.
No, that's all right. That's okay. I thought I'd start with the description I had from my supervisor, who started work less than 3 years ago at the Addison Public Library. She's the coordinator for children's services, and she replaced one who had been there as coordinator for children's for like 30 years. And she told me one of the reasons that and she doesn't call it a policy, it's not a written policy, but she calls it a holiday procedure. And she said when she started there less than 3 years ago, she said at this time of year, the children's department looked like a Michael's store. And so that's why I chose this picture of this shop. It was just a bit overdone. And I asked if patrons complained, and she said that yes, there have been complaints from patrons about an overemphasis, I'm assuming actually, but an overemphasis on Western Christian, I would imagine, holiday emphasis. And Addison, Illinois is quite a diverse community. It has quite a large immigrant population, 42 different languages. I'll talk more about that a little bit later. But we have many people of many religions are coming to the library and from different ethnic backgrounds. And so we need to be attentive to all of their needs. Would you like to switch?
Yeah.
So what we do is, procedure is that we do not have anything that's explicitly holiday or religious unless it is carefully explained that way in the newsletter. We have a newsletter that comes out every 2 months. We also have our website with the same descriptions when people register for events, for example. So, and then those events don't happen out in the general areas of the libraries. For example, my coworker is doing a Christmas, some kind of Christmassy thing, and she put Christmas in the name of it. That will happen that will occur in a program room. It require registration. I came across, actually one of my coworkers, I've been collecting sort of leftover unused craft supplies. Our budget, turns out we've already spent like 70% of our budget for things like crafts and outside presenters, and we still have to get through the end of April for the fiscal year. So I think that we're collecting some of these things to use. But when some of the things that were given to me were very clearly, Christmas trees and Santa Claus and Oriental trading, craft things with stickers and things, my supervisor said, "Oh, we can't do that. Those can't be done out in the common areas." it would have to be something that occurred in a program room because it's so explicitly a specific holiday. So when I was looking on the internet, I found this little description here, family art party. I thought it did from a different library. I thought it did a pretty good job of just sort of giving a general holiday feel as opposed to being specific. It could be Kwanzaa, it could be Hanukkah, it could be some other holiday, not just a Western Christian type thing. And so it's more inclusive of other cultures who want to take part. Can you turn? Thanks. So I also found this online, and you see they've taken old books and sort of jazzed them up for to look like a tree. And we do, I don't know if we'll have it this year, but last year we had an artificial tree right by the children's department, and we are right inside the main entrance lobby. So it's the first place people arrive after the guest services, which is the circulation desk. You have to go upstairs to get to adult. And people actually come to our desk and ask us, do you have any adult books in this library? I'm like, oh, that would be the second floor. And so we did have a tree, but what the tree had on it was specific descriptions of gifts, particularly of clothing and other things that were to be donated to a nonprofit that collects holiday gifts for people who have need. And so the other thing we're going to have this year, it turns out, I learned today that the library board has decided that we are going to encourage people to bring donations of diapers. And we do have a teen mother group, teen parent, I should say, group that meets once a month and has a dinner, and one of the teen librarians runs that. And so there is a great need for that. So actually someone created a little tree, not as big as this one here, which I just got a chance to see today. And it has tags like you see now. It will have tags. We're about to make tags of snowmen, and we're going to describe a size of diaper, and then we're going to say what date to bring it and where to drop it off at the library. And then those will be taken to the nonprofit that will give them away. And so it was a very, very simple tree. I think it had lights. Yes, I remember putting the lights on for it, but not any actual ornaments except for the tags that an awful lot of staff actually bought things for those tags. But that's what we're emphasizing to reflect our community. So that's an idea, it's donation tree. So here's a little bit of a description. So it needs to state that it will be holiday, and then so this is what my coworker will be doing in December, the Christmas classic story time. And that, like I said, will be in a program room and not out in the open areas. And then I really like it that you chose this, Elizabeth. You chose this picture the night before Christmas because I happen to have met the illustrator of that book.
Yeah, that's great.
She's a friend of a friend. And she's done an enormous number of books about American history too, like Abraham Lincoln and George Washington and all. We've all found it difficult to sort of decide what to do about Halloween for this procedure, holiday procedure. It's, for example, I am the chair of the Book Boxes Committee, and if you haven't heard of book boxes, it's similar but free, of course. It's like the subscription boxes people will buy to have a book sent to them each month or every couple months. You can get it, for children or for adults, and then sort of goodies and treats and things come in the box. Books. And so we are doing that. We're picking themes. So every 2 months we have these a limit of 50 book boxes, and they always all get registered for. And so we have different categories for ages, and they can tell us things about what they enjoy reading, categories. But we have a theme, and so for the boxes that were given out in October, the theme was originally the teen librarian on the committee suggested something wicked this way comes, which would have been just fine for teens and adults. But from the children's department perspective, we didn't really want that word wicked in there. It didn't really fit in. And so what we compromised on was toil and trouble. And so from Macbeth. So then we had to deal with what kind of trinkets and toys to put in the box, because we've got this holiday procedure not to overdo it on the holiday. And it does seem like a secular holiday, but it actually never originated that way. And when you think of the Puritans and that's and all the religious connotations and that from Europe as well, it does make it problematic. And I don't know, literally I've never asked any of our Muslim patrons what the view on that is for Halloween. So we didn't have anything overtly Halloweenish, but we did have little trinkets we get from Amazon or Oriental Trading to put in the box. So then the description I gave, a kind of general description. So there are at least 40 different languages spoken. For example, I'm the fluent French speaker at the library. The director's husband is from Cameroon, and so she speaks French quite well too. There's a whole community, sort of a mini community of immigrants from Cameroon who are French speakers, over 130 or so of them. And they live pretty close to the library as well, and their children come to the library. And then, of course, Spanish is extremely well represented in Addison. And then, so we have an extremely large Spanish collection of all kinds of materials, even playaways, and then the Polish collection is the largest I've ever seen for a children's collection. It's about 3 or 4 shelves, about 8 feet at least wide, and quite a few people come to it's a Polish story time. We have 2 employees in the library who are fluent Polish speakers, and one in children's who does once a week does Polish story time. And so she sets up these an outside artist who comes. And so you can see down below holiday cards, create holiday cards using a Polish style with, and I just didn't have permission to put the name. And then that one, I think last year it filled up within 2 days. I mean, literally I'll get calls like one after another on the first registration day for some of these Polish art things. And Polish ornament. So this is clearly a Christian, Christmas type thing, a Polish ornament, but it doesn't say straight out Christmas, but it says holiday. And so people know what they're going to come in for. And I've noticed it seems to be a fair number of grandparents who are bringing their grandchildren to help them, pick up on their Polish heritage. So, was that the last slide?
I think so.
Okay. So I think I got my 15 minutes.
That's perfect timing. Thank you so much. And if you have questions for Julia, make sure that you save them and we'll talk about them at the end. And Abigail, I think you're up.
Awesome. I just had to unmute myself. Hello, everyone. I was just going to do a little short introduction about myself. Wisconsin, Milwaukee. So greetings from Milwaukee. It is quite cold and it's snowing right now at the moment. I'm in the School of Information Studies, so we have an iSchool here. And this isn't my particular research area, but I thought the title was funny because I did a deep dive into what the research does talk about regarding holidays and library programming or library decorations, and I could not find anything. That doesn't mean there isn't anything there. So something will pop up tomorrow and I'll find it. But what I really relied upon was a lot of practitioner publications, so blog posts, library journal articles, and that sort of thing. Just a little bit about my background. I got my PhD at Florida State University at their School of Information in spring 2016. And before that, I was a public librarian for 4 years. Mostly, it was in a rural community, so I did a bit of everything. But mostly I worked with teens, and I've basically worked in libraries my entire life until I went to academia. So libraries they're really all I know. So I included my email if you have any other questions, and I'm also really active on Twitter. So follow me or just tweet at me. So next slide, please. Or can I do that? Okay. So I was curious about, from the audience, like, what are your experiences with holidays within libraries? Do you have thoughts, reflections, critiques, comments? I can also look at the chat box.
Yeah, feel free to share in the chat box, everyone. I can start. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
This is just my experience as a teacher, but I worked at a new school, at a new charter school, and we hadn't quite figured out what we were going to do for the holidays. And growing up, I had a lot of friends who were Jewish, so I tried to be really sensitive that there are children of all different faith backgrounds during the holidays. Although in California, it doesn't snow, so then you can't even do like snowman themed. So my classroom had snowflakes, but it wasn't that exciting. But then on the flip side, I had a teacher, one of the parents in her class brought her a Christmas tree. So she had a Christmas tree. So at least in that context, I've kind of grappled with this question, although not in a library. And here we go. Thanks for sharing, Violet.
Oh yeah, seasonal celebrations. Interesting. And what kind of family gatherings? What does that entail within a library? So there's been quite a range of what. Oh. Okay. Huh. That's interesting that you can't put out certain decorations. Well, thank you for sharing with me. I was really curious about what everybody else has experienced, because I was, the next slide, please.
Oops.
So I think it's important to me to highlight my background. I did mention that I was a former public librarian, but I was in a small rural library system in Southwest Georgia. Again, I was very youth focused, but the system that I worked in served conservative, very religious communities. And by very religious, I mean largely Southern Baptist, evangelical, and some Methodist. There's not a huge, even I just checked some of the statistics today, and again, those are the census ones, but it's largely almost 70% white and 22% African American. So Christianity really dominates. so I thought that was important to put out first, that my experience with the word holiday is a negative connotation. I mean, I'm atheist, so I grew up religious, but I no longer hold those beliefs. But back home in South Georgia, there's a big push. You can see it on people's cars when you drive by. It's put Christ back in Christmas. So the word holiday, some people get upset with that because it's not Christmas. It's they want you to say Christmas and not Happy Holidays. So so my experience is working as a public librarian is that we decorated for Halloween, but in a way that's more spooky. Like we would get dead tree limbs and decorate them with cobwebs and put crows on them, or we just put different things around the library it wasn't all got ghosts and witches and that sort of thing. Although in the children's section we did pull out Halloween or spooky themed books, and we did get a response once from somebody about a book that featured a witch, a picture book that featured a witch, and they did not they were upset by that book. So and they didn't fill out a complete form for it, so we just kind of let it as it be. I just come from I grew up in a very conservative community, so I think that influences when I think about holidays in libraries. Just an interesting, different perspective. Yes, next slide. So I pulled, since there's not a lot of research, I pulled from what is available to me and what I am familiar with, a lot of blogs. And if you ever engage in this discussion on Twitter, it's a hot topic as well. Let's see. So this one, the 5-Minute Librarian, all the links are at the end, of course, within the references, but it's very traditional and a lot of expected holiday activities. And it's clearly Christmas and geared towards Christmas, but not explicitly. Even in my library where I last worked, we did not do any religious programming. It was all Santa Claus, like a puppet show, snowflakes, that sort of thing. Not that that isn't alienating to some people, but we never dipped into the waters of getting involved with more of the religious side of things. Let's see. Oh, wait.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry. It just takes my mind a minute to think. It doesn't seem, I mean, you can't see it here, but it doesn't become, not a problem, I would say, but holiday crafts. If you look at this website and you scroll down a bit, you'll see where they talk about holiday crafts that are very, to me, very Christian based, and some people may be uncomfortable with those. Definitely understand why. There's a weird noise. Kind of spooky. Okay, next slide, please. This is obviously Pinterest. I Googled, let's see, holiday library programming, or I put that into Pinterest, and this is a lot of what came up. So a lot of paper trees, ornaments. My library went really intensely into decorating. It had a huge Christmas tree, which obviously is has a deep-rooted Christian background, but that was the only clearly identifiable religious part. I don't even know if we had a star. I think we had some kind of storybook character on top of our Christmas tree. So around the library, it was just decorated with kind of generic, I would call it Christmas like fall wintry things. Let's see what else. So lots of snowmen and elves and all kinds of things on this Pinterest page. So Pinterest does kind of highlight a lot of what librarians are doing, or some libraries. I can't speak for all libraries. And again, my background is in rural libraries, so that's where my understanding of what decoration means for libraries, and not the most ideal, but it's changed around. When I lived in Utah, it was quite different. In Florida, it was different, but there's always a Christmas tree involved. Let's see. Next slide, please. Okay, these are the next two slides are connected with the programming librarian. If you've ever used that website, it actually it's really nice if you're looking for different program or programming ideas. I have a friend who contributes a lot of really awesome things, but for this one, they were focusing on like very warm and fuzzy giving. So also talked about freedom, act of kindness, and the next slide talks about helping teens through the holidays, because I think it's important. I'm a huge mental health advocate or self-advocate, and the holidays are very hard on you during your holidays are very hard on your mental health, which is why I don't participate in them. Partially, there is increased stress, anxiety, depression, this feeling of generally being overwhelmed. And this is from the National Association of Mental Illness. And so what I did like about this, Lifting Teen Spirits, is that it talked about mindfulness, meditation, yoga, like ways to get away from the whole concept of it being a holiday. And so this is just a screenshot of it, but if you go to it, you can see that they're really looking for how to take care of teens, their mental well-being. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is kind of what I pulled from all of this. Holiday programming and decorating is expected in some communities. I can't generalize. It's really kind of deeply ingrained into the culture that we live in. But when you're thinking about very overt religious programming and or decorating, like think about who you're excluding, who you're distancing, because there are some people who very strongly feel uncomfortable around these very big displays of Christianity or Christmas, or people from different religions may not feel comfortable coming to a crafting program where they're making Santa Claus. And I've rarely experienced any of these strictly direct community or Christmas programming that is religious. Oh, wow. Is my okay, I'll talk faster. But it happens in church-affiliated libraries, particularly with universities, so you may see that. So it's really important to know what your community actually wants. So community needs assessment is really important. What cultures are represented? Are there different languages that are spoken? What does my county or state provide? Also, in addition to what the library provides to the people within my community. And look for neighboring organizations, like how you can work together to provide something that's a little less intensely holiday-ish, but more the sense of giving. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, this is where it starts to go. It starts to become blog posts talking about people who are digging into critical thinking skills and looking at holiday programming, holiday decorating, and questioning it. So it's not black and white. There's tons of gray, and this article, she highlights a community-led librarianship toolkit from the Vancouver Public Library, which I checked out earlier, and it's really awesome. The link in this one is dead, or in this page is dead, but you can easily Google it and find it. So they talk about, why am I doing this programming? Is it for me as the librarian, or is it for my community? Do I know what my community wants? Why is the library a place for this program? Is it appropriate? Is it not? So next slide, please. Again, another blog post, and this is from some Canadian librarians. And what I really liked about them is that they talked about, well, this is where the Vancouver came from. The community, your community as the expert about what they want. So they did a lot of community surveys. They went out and actually talked to people. Libraries typically, or not typically, but what I've noticed and experienced as a librarian is they do patron surveys. So you're only getting surveys from patrons. You're not getting surveys from the wide spectrum of your community. So you really have to get out there and talk to people and ask what they want and what would bring them to the library. So they bring in a lot of people from the community who are experts about a range of different religions and experiences. So this keeps away from this idea of tokenism, saying we're going to do a program about Kwanzaa because we have to, because we did one about Christmas. So very much want to stay away from that and actually incorporate people who are knowledgeable about the different holidays or religious practices that they take very dearly, especially and Vancouver's extremely diverse. So they are highly skilled at this. And we recognize that you're going to offend somebody no matter what you do. It's life, honestly. It's no matter how hard you try, somebody's going to either be offended or be upset by it, and that's not great, but it's hard to please everyone. I don't know if that's the best way to put it, but that's why it's great to bring in people from the community so they can represent the community. Next slide, please. I am almost done. I swear. Maybe some people are familiar with Storytime Underground. They also have a Facebook page. It's a really great not organization, but kind of like a group. So they, in this blog post, they were talking about they were much more assertive about non-holiday, just getting rid of it entirely. So I checked some of the websites from back home, and they haven't even planned anything for December. The closest I could come to was bow making, and it was an adult program. So this is a public, let's see where my notes are going. And what they discuss in this blog post is that they talk about the library as a public organization, and they can't really support something religious. So they really aim to kind of keep more neutral in a certain degree. And for me, I always highlight it best that this is a very hard topic, and there's people who are very opposed to any holiday being represented. Valentine's Day, Halloween, definitely Christmas, Thanksgiving, and there's a lot of completely understand their viewpoints, but there are gray areas, and this is where really your critical. I don't know if you're familiar with the term critical librarianship. I hope so. I teach my students a lot about it. Looking at what you're doing and questioning it. Is this something that we really need? Is it doing a good service to our community? Is it reflective of our community? Does it take into account the different people within our community? And a lot of this stuff, is through community assessment, doing surveys, and all that sort of stuff that I have done before many times. And next slide, please. So I just pulled a couple of things, like deconstructing the words, like what does holiday mean? Because again, like I said, back home, holiday is a very negative word. They say happy holidays. Some people, you're supposed to say Merry Christmas. That's the mindset. And so from some different parts of the United States, that may be entirely different. Like, so this program is looking at holidays, and when I engage with librarians on Twitter, holiday to them is also kind of not negative. I don't know how to best describe it, but it's a loaded word. So you really have to think about what you are talking about when you're talking about holiday. And think about what is important to our community? Why do we do what we do? And bringing in others outside of the community. That's where the community-led part comes from, not librarian or library staff. And that kind of covers a lot of things beyond holidays. But Vancouver Public Library, again, that resource is pretty terrific. It's long, but it's a good, quick read. And the library is a welcoming space, and our members within your community and come to your library, and the entire library is explosion of Christmas stuff that may alienate them from coming back. It may not, but it's also exclusionary of different cultures, and different people within where you're living and what your library, who your library is trying to serve. And I don't know, I just threw these questions out. Like, I very much encourage critical thinking as master students. It's what I use every day or every time I teach, and really looking at your profession. What's good, bad, or ineffective? And I think this discussion is really a huge reflection of that. So I guess that's everything from me. I went over time, but thank you. There's a couple other slides, references necessary. So you can check out some of these articles. And a necessary cat gif, and my contact information again. So yeah, please reach out.
Thank you so much, and no worries about the time. We still have a couple minutes for questions, so I'll open up the chat and see what people are saying. Feel free to use your microphone or to type questions. So seasonal things. Let's see.
This is Julia. Can you hear me?
Yeah, hi.
Hi. I just thought it was interesting to talk about the use of the expression holiday. My mother-in-law, who's 81, says that she remembers as a child that it was considered, and she grew up in San Diego, California. She said it was considered in her Protestant church, Merry Christmas was not considered correct, because Merry Christmas meant originally Christmas is a day off from work where you would get drunk and be merry. And so to say Merry Christmas was go and have a good party. But holiday actually means holy day. So it's actually more religious than the word merry. So it's funny how language changes so much over generations.
That is interesting. It's interesting, like regionally, how we
Oh, yes.
how we use terms. Because, I mean, Merry Christmas is like hardcore. They're very back home.
Right. They don't realize that it goes back to the British tradition of alcohol.
No, they do not.
So you really have to understand, it goes back to really having to understand your community. And I agree with Abigail that you need to be not just your patrons, but your whole community, so that they'll feel welcomed when they walk in and feel, listened to.
Absolutely. That's really interesting. I didn't know the origin of that phrase either. And does anyone else? Oh, sorry.
Not many people do. I did not.
Yeah. It looks like there's an interesting discussion in the chat about having, oh, look at that. Neil Gaiman coming.
About Neil Gaiman, yes. This is back to our book boxes with the with the toil and trouble theme. I was looking at Neil. I actually did a little shelf talker for his book Hansel and Gretel in October. I picked a number of books like that, witches in the title, and I hadn't realized, I hadn't realized anything about Russian immigrants and that sort of thing, and Neil Gaiman. When I heard Neil Gaiman speak at ALA, I think in 2009, he was talking about graphic novels, and he talked about how when he was a child, graphic novels were like, no, that's bad literature. You can't you can't spend time doing that. But he's been a huge advocate for that. So you don't only have to focus on I guess, the scary fairy tale graveyard necessarily. There might have, but I have to admit, I do find his work a bit scary myself.
Yeah. Oh, yes, Monica, thank you for that. Does anyone else have any questions or comments before we get going? We've got another minute or two if we want to ask anything. And feel free, of course, to reach out if you have a question at a later point.
I'm sorry, I apparently had a lot of things to say that I did not expect, but I didn't mean to take up so much time.
No, it was great. I think those resources will be really helpful to people. Let's see. Yes, I will post the slides and the video. So they'll be on not the SJSU website, but on the ALASC website. So keep an eye out for those in probably the next week or two.
Thank you.
I'll send them out to the people who attended as well.
Thank you, Elizabeth, for inviting me.
Yeah, thank you so much, both of you, for sharing. We really enjoyed this presentation.
Oh, thank you. It was fun.
Good, I'm glad. I hope this was helpful for people. It's interesting and controversial topic, but I hope that everyone feels like they're equipped to at least start the discussion with the people at their workplace and maybe other people in our MLIS program. So thank you, and I hope that everyone, thanks, Allison. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I hope that everyone has a great evening.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Good evening. Bye.